What is up, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome, Bizak, to the Stop Playing With Me podcast, where we are advocating for the underdog in ourselves all year long. Honey, if y'all have been following us from the beginning, literally humble beginnings, we have been going strong for literally 2 years, and God has been good. Listen, like I said, we are impacting so many individuals all over the world. I look at the statistics the analytics really every other day. And just to see where my voice and where the voice of God has reached through me, through my testimony, through my stories, it is humbling. It really is. And so I just want to encourage for anybody who wants to join the journey, please make sure you just like, comment, share, subscribe. And honey, if you can't beat them, ask somebody else to join them. Share with your aunties and your uncles in them, and also your nieces and your nephews. And we can go ahead and get this show on the road. Cricket, get the bags. Oh, honey, I guess I got to introduce myself. Did I not? I am your lovely, beautiful, talented, incredible, confident, competent, healthy, wealthy, influential, intellectual, and intentional co-host Kierston S. Lewis. And honey, I might just need to add humble and holy because if this process, if this part of my life, this part of my journey has not taught me anything else, it has genuinely taught me what it really means to be humble and what it really means to be holy, and letting your life be an example of what God considers to be holy and acceptable, and what that reasonable service is supposed to look like according to the King's standard. I wouldn't be me if it were not for he, and he who shall be named is none other than the Holy Ghost, honey. Clap it up, clap it up, clap it up for the Holy Ghost, because let's be very clear, he is the one that is running this show. Honey, as y'all can see to the screen next to me, you are tuning into the director's cut. This is where we fully understand that I am not the one sitting in the seat, but it is truly the Lord's cut that's going forth. It is his version, and I am literally just reading my script. I'm putting the scripts together, and I'm putting the show together. But the Lord is the one who really calls the shots. He is the one who really has his way, honey. And I hope my appearance does not offend nobody. I'm choosing to make myself at home. Honey, speaking of at home, guess who then made it back to Alabama? Let's just get the show on the road, cricket, get the bags. And for any of y'all who are returning listeners, recurring listeners, y'all already know. Just so I can break the ice, I just start telling y'all all my business. So if y'all tuned in to last week's episode, y'all knew, and I disclosed to you all that I was stuck, right? I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I had a fork in the road decision to make to try to figure out what would actually be the best decision for me. And ultimately, if this has not given it away, I have indeed decided to follow Jesus. Anyway, I have indeed decided to travel back on home to Alabama. Now, how long do I plan on being here? To be completely honest with y'all, I don't know. And I think that's just the beauty of my journey as I am navigating, trying to see what it is and really what it isn't. If I can be completely honest, and I feel like I'm finna be a weeping mess because it's been a lot to process, right? But if I can be completely honest with y'all, I had so many plans of what I thought my life was supposed to look like by now. And I don't want you to mistake my tears as tears of grief or disappointment. Well, not disappointment. These are indeed tears of grief, but I don't want you all to think that this is because I'm just simply disappointed. No, I had to struggle with that off camera, and me and God processed that in private. But I do understand the impact and the power behind my emotions, and so I want to be very clear when I articulate them, especially those who are viewing on YouTube, who are watching my face. But these are not tears of sorrow or disappointment or bitterness. It's more so grief, and we all have experienced grief, and oh, and we all have experienced grief at one particular point in time. And it does not always have to be, grief concerning the death of a loved one or death in general. But it can be, of course, grief of what felt like missed moments or missed opportunities. If I can be honest with you all, I definitely thought that my life would have been somewhere else by now. And when I moved to the East Coast, I remember I was so ecstatic, telling everybody under the sun, I mean, publicizing the heck out of it. Like I said, listen, the Lord showed me New York. Guess who's moving to New York? And I don't know if I ever shared this. I don't think I had. I don't think I had ever shared this publicly, at least. But I don't care. When God showed me New York, for me, like I said in the episode prior, I've always been like a shotgun personality. I've always been like, if God shows me something, I want to go ahead and hurry up and see what's out there. I want to go ahead and see whatever he showed. And so it's almost like I had become a calculated, impulsive person. So I would make my plans, but it was always a struggle bus for me to discern the Lord's timing, right? And so my first attempt to move to New York, it was the day after my birthday, and I was at my parents' house, and I remember, like, with so much wonder and conviction in my heart, so much wonder in my eyes, I remember I told my parents, I said, all right, I gotta go and see what God said. I want to go and see what the Lord has done. And I was so convinced that me going, the floodgates were going to open. It was going to be like the curtains would open, like everything would fall into place for me. And like I said, that's my whimsical nature. And I'm not ashamed of any part, because I feel like I'm about to share a lot of personal stories just regarding grief. And I did not know what the episode was going to bring going into this. But like, as I'm sharing this, like when I say I bear no shame in my heart, because I know I'm not the only one. Stop playing with me. I know I'm not the only one who truly believed that they thought that God said one thing, and it wasn't that God didn't say it, or versus he did say it, but sometimes it was just a matter of time that us as humans, we don't fully understand. And it does not mean that because we may have moved in or out of timing, that God still doesn't make good on the things that we feel like we were too slow moving towards or too quick moving into. I know we've all experienced it. So why should I feel any kind of way? Because I know who I'm ministering to by the grace of God through faith. So to get back on topic, when I went to New York the first time, I didn't have a real deal plan. I didn't have a plan at all. All I knew was I felt like the Lord called me there. And so therefore I was going to go. And when I went, I decided to stay. I landed in Newark. I landed in Newark, New Jersey. And I actually documented my journey. As a matter of fact, I think I still may have it archived in the subscription platform. And if not, maybe I'll just have to pull it out of the archive. I may not. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see. If you choose to subscribe on the Instagram, then you'll probably see it by the time this is up. But I documented my whole journey of landing in Newark, staying in an Airbnb for maybe a one night, 2 days or something like that. And then, oh my goodness, I never shared this with anyone. I don't think so. But yeah, I stayed in an Airbnb in Newark. And then I, I decided to book another Airbnb in another part of Jersey, I want to say. And that, oh my goodness. And that was some real sketchy business. That was some real sketchy business. And because it was such a sketchy environment, I literally could not get any sleep. And so I remember calling one of my friends, one of my close friends at the time, on the phone. And I said, girl, I don't know about this. Like something feels off. And so ultimately, I just asked her to stay on the phone with me while I figured out, like, my next move. And I ended up basically booking a Lyft to take me over to, a pretty affordable but well-known hotel. So I was just like, I'll stay there. And this whole time, this whole time during like these, just touch and go points, for me, I was trying to figure out, okay, Lord, what do you want to do with me here? What is it that you would like to do with me here? And I feel like the Lord did speak, but I just can't remember. I'm gonna have to go back to find some notes I may have written about it. But I just kept saying, like, God, where do you want me to go? Where do you want me to go? And I found this beautiful hotel in Soho, New York, right? Over by Chinatown. And so I ended up staying there for, I want to say, 10 days. So ultimately, I lived in New York for like 2 weeks. And during that time, like I said, I settled there, and I was just, I was praying, I was fasting, like I was exploring. Oh my goodness, that was a time. That was a time. If I if I could not take anything else from what it was like living in New York, even if for a short amount of time, just existing as a tourist was probably one of the most breathtaking experiences I ever had. And yes, I was out there by myself, exploring and all those things. But oh my goodness, that was a good time. I have no regrets about that because I saw so much. When I tell y'all, my eyes just glistened and glimmered and shined at Chinatown, Little Italy, the Brooklyn Bridge, looking at all of the monumental like architecture in the city, visiting Brooklyn, going to Times Square, and it was like 15 degrees, right? And so, yeah, like there were times where I was asking God, like, why did you call me here? But there were also times where I was fully appreciating where He allowed me to be, you know, making the best. As a matter of fact, thank you, Holy Spirit. I'm so grateful for your presence because you come that we may have life and have it more abundantly. As a matter of fact, I really got to pull those videos out of archive so y'all can see them in the subscription platform, because I sat in that hotel in Soho and I just kept asking God, what am I doing here, Lord? What do you want to do with me out here? Like, you want me to audition for a play or something? Like, what's going on? And I remember He said something so simple to me. He said, what would you do if you were simply a tourist? And I said, child, let me make a list. And that's what encouraged me. That's what really provoked me to, like, really just, I called it getting a lay of the land at one point, but I was like, actually, I went on an adventure with God. And where I thought it was something that was meant for longevity, right? Because, like I said in the beginning, it was all a matter of time and timing. Where I thought it was something that I was supposed to have longevity in, the Lord simply allowed me to enjoy my journey, to enjoy why I was there, and to enjoy the leap that I made. Because I mean, now looking back on it, because if we just put language to it, I know I said I thought I was moving to New York, but child, if we put language to it for real, and put it in a better context, I was on a vacation. I went on a vacation, and that's another beautiful thing about life. You can always change your perspective. Why weigh your life down with a context that belittles your journey? Why weigh your life down with, like, your own expectations when you can just simply change your perspective, change your perception, change your narrative? Like I said, I could have seen that attempt as a failure. But now that I look back on it, 2 years later, it was actually just a really nice vacation. A really nice vacation to the north. And I was able to pay my credit card bill back off by the time I got back home. I went on an adventure with God. And I said all that because that's a season that I really could have grieved, right? But as I'm sitting here reflecting and processing even that memory, what would I have been grieving when I didn't even know why I was going there to begin with? It's one of those things. Half of the things that I thought the Lord had called me to do, I didn't know why He called me to do them. And Lord, permit that He actually just wanted me to get the most out of life. Like, everything had to be a top secret mission with me, you know? And maybe it's because I'm about to cross over to 30. Maybe it's because, like, I am just being newly reintroduced to God and understanding fully what His love for me is like. And sometimes everything doesn't have to be an ongoing assignment. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's just a level of reflection that I'm experiencing even now as I'm processing it out loud. But what if half of the things that the Lord showed me in life was just simply because He wanted me to experience it, because I ain't gonna be able to experience it in heaven? There's a mansion for me in heaven. I ain't gotta buy no house. Honey, I ain't gotta buy no house in heaven. My daddy already got one for me. You know what I'm saying? There are no national landmarks and stuff. Like, it's just paradise. And so maybe it was just a matter of God allowing me to get the most out of my life. And if I were not careful, and I would have allowed life to write my narrative, if I would have allowed life to dictate, or even my original expectations to dictate my life's narrative, I could have easily slid into just torrents of grief. And now that as I'm journeying through life all the more, like, it was something that I chose not to share publicly, at least for, well, all the way up until now, because I felt a lot of shame behind it. I felt a lot of shame because it caused me to feel like a failure. I kept telling everybody I was moving to New York, and ain't nobody see not nary evidence. And I felt so shameful because I was like, girl, you done sat here and lied to these folks. But I'm like, no, genuinely I did. I thought I was going to live in New York. But then again, as I learned myself, as I took time to learn me and accept me for who I am, I also realized I'm not a city girl. So why was I trying to live in the city? God knew me before I knew me. And so it's just one of those wisdom moments. I was like, girl, why are you trying to live in New York? You're not even a city girl. You don't like loud noises. You could barely sleep when you was in Soho. You needed earplugs. All that honking and carrying on. This is also why it's so important for you to know yourself, because God knows you better than you know you, but also it helps you work better with God when you know more about you as well. So yeah, looking back on it, I was like, well, Lord, I feel like I should have gotten more wisdom, of course, but I don't regret the adventure. I don't regret it at all. And I just feel like that's what weighs us down, is regret and remorse, feeling like we should have done something different. Oof. Man, that thing is tearing me up. We go throughout life wishing that we would have done something different, holding on to regret and holding on to remorse, when we know good and well that we do not have the power to change it. And for some reason we feel like we should fix it. When God looks at what we think are mistakes, God looks at what we think are mistakes, and he says, that's all a part of the plan. Big dog, that's all a part of the plan. Nothing will be wasted, because he causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him and that are called according to his purpose. And so that always led me to ask two questions. Do you love the Lord, Kierston? I do. And are you called according to his purpose? I am. Then that means congratulations, you are qualified for life to work out for your good. So I just chose to change my perspective on a lot of the decisions that I made in my life. So often I said, like, I live on the East Coast because, one, I did not, and I personally, I try not to disclose too much of my business just to be wise. But that's why I kept saying that I lived on the East Coast, because technically I lived in Jersey. And so I wasn't too far off from New York when I actually started living on the East Coast. I don't know if I ever shared that testimony, but like I said, when I was living in Atlanta, there was a friend of mine that I sung on the praise and worship team with. He knew someone that lived in New York, and he connected us, and we got to know each other. And she's still a phenomenal person. Like, we're still connected. And it just so happened that, just kind of such as life, the more that we talked, the more that we, kind of got a feel of what I was looking to do, and how I was trying to navigate, and what I was willing to, accommodate or compromise on, just to make sure that I could get there at least. She said, "Well, I have a friend. I have a friend that, lives in Jersey. She's looking for a roommate, and I can connect you to and see if that's a good fit." And I said, "Please, at this point, whatever works, man." And so I got back here. I got back home to my family, and this is so good. This is so good to me. Yeah, this is so good to me, man. So I got back home after my first, or my second round visiting New York. By that time, it was the second time I visited New York. And I just remember spending like maybe a couple months here. And because I did not understand the timing of it all, and when God actually wanted me to leave, to live on the East Coast, I just started saying, like, well, maybe if I do this, right? Maybe if I go this route. And they were some outlandish attempts. Need I mind you, like, I I really wasn't thinking it through. I really wasn't. I was thinking of it from a independent standpoint. I wasn't thinking of it from a standpoint of, I actually have a family that genuinely loves me and genuinely supports whatever it is that I'm doing, but also wants that, but they also want me to move with integrity. They reminded me of who I was, right? And the moves I was trying to make, they weren't really all the most integrous moves for me. I'm not saying like integrous as in being dishonest to others, but I'm saying it wasn't true and it wasn't honest to me and what I valued and what I believed. But I was willing to compromise on those things, just so I can achieve what God said. It seems like it's a recurring theme. And so I'm so grateful to my father, who, oh man, his discernment is like nobody's business, but he has the heart of a teddy bear. But he was like, "Baby, I know you got to get there, but I truly believe there's another way." And lo and behold, my daddy said a prayer. I said a prayer. Child, my mama said a prayer. And maybe like a week later, I got connected to that friend that I mentioned in the beginning, that we got connected, and we had one quick FaceTime call. And it was a match made in heaven. It was a match made in heaven. We could not have been more perfect for each other, roommate wise. And so we were in agreement. I ended up moving to the East Coast seamlessly, with so much peace and with so much ease, within, I think, a month's time. And I lived in Jersey for 6 months. And where I thought, man, this is so good, where I thought that I was going up there to make an impact. And it's not to say that I didn't. It's not to say I didn't make a lasting impact. But I thought I was going up there to, like, you know what I'm saying, make a difference. Man, I went up there, and I met some of the most I met some of the most amazing human beings that years undid years of trauma, They undid years of just feeling like feeling I had to work in order to be loved, me feeling like I had to go the extra mile in order to be in order to prove myself worthy of receiving unconditional love. I think when I got to Jersey and I was surrounded by the community that I found, I feel like that's the moment where I was not necessarily introduced to love, but I was reintroduced to love. And they taught me how to love myself. Like, I don't think I had ever felt so full from being around people that simply celebrated me for existing. I did not sing. I did not sing a song for them. I did not produce a project for them. I did not I did not have any opportunities to give nobody. I didn't employ nobody. I simply existed. And I showed up. And I served wherever I wanted to, because that was my heart. But even when I did the bare minimum, you would have thought everyone around me was just gave a standing ovation. And I don't think I'd ever, outside of my family, I don't think I had ever experienced that, because it always felt like I had to work for approval. I had to work to prove that I was worthy of love. And here I am for the next 6 months being surrounded by people that wanted nothing from me, that they didn't have any ulterior motives. They just cared about me. And like I said, where I thought I was going up there to, honey, change somebody's life, turns out they changed mine. And in turn, them loving me well, even in my broken state, even, man, when I look back, y'all, and I of course never talked about this outside of it being a curated revelation that I just, tried to package well and deliver in previous episodes, but like, I was broken. I was broken. I didn't trust anybody. Anybody that wanted to do anything nice for me, I just knew that it came at a cost. I just knew that, like, people weren't who they said that they were. And I questioned it every chance I got. Because I knew me, and I knew that my heart is so big. And I had trusted people so easy, and it bit me so many times. And so when I was surrounded by something that was so authentic and so genuine and so pure, I did not know how to receive it. I didn't know how to receive it. I didn't know how to make sense of it. And even in times where I thought it was a hump I got over, and even in times where I thought it was a hump that I had finally gotten over, but I would get triggered again. My roommate, bless her heart, God really did his big one when he introduced me to her. But every time I had a broken moment, every time I was triggered, and but anytime I had a traumatic or a trauma, a triggered moment, and I would sit with her and process it, where I was expecting her to get frustrated with me, as often as I would get frustrated with me, like, girl, you ain't over this yet. Like, you ain't figured this part of your life out yet. And she would always meet me in those moments as if it were the first time that it happened for me. And she would help me get to the root of it, help me get understanding around it, help me to not always just believe what my mind said, but also reassessing the truth, the evidence around me, wondering, like, if God is telling me that someone isn't trustworthy, or is my past telling me that, right? Is trauma telling me that? And even after pouring my heart out to this young lady, just realizing after we would get up from that moment, right? After we would get up from that moment, and I would just be expecting her, because, oh my goodness, because there were so many times where people would put me on a pedestal. There were so many times where I could visibly see that people would put me in a pretty high position in their lives. And so anytime they encountered me, it's almost as if they were always expecting to be impacted by me. And this isn't something that I'm just making up to make myself feel important. To be honest, I don't care like that. I don't. But it's always been like that, because there was always this image, right, of basically it seemed like I could do no wrong. And so when I did do wrong, or when I was anything less than perfect, anything not necessarily perfect, but anything less than exceptional, anything less than the version of myself that people were familiar with and comfortable with, right? Any level or any inkling of brokenness, what how can I describe it? It's almost as if the it it's almost as if there was this enchantment, right? And I don't be casting no spells, but I'm saying there's this charm. There's this charm that charismatic people have, and that is what a lot of people are drawn to. And so when that charm has dissipated and all that we are left with is the person and the human being, it's almost as if whatever spell or enchanting experience that person had with that charm, it's broken. And when that spell is broken, and I'm only saying spell for the sake of the example, but when that feeling dissipates and I'm no longer able to make you feel good about you because I'm trying to feel good about me, it ruins the experience, right? And we are all liable. You know what I'm saying? We're all liable to to be in a mental or emotional or physiological position to where we will subconsciously expect that from others. Like, I really like being around this person. I really like being this person's presence because it's just something about them that's just so magnetic, right? This is why the Bible says that charm is deceptive and beauty fades, but a woman who praises the Lord, who fears the Lord, will be forever praised. Like, because charm can be really deceptive. And when charm fades and when beauty fades, you'll see. You'll see who's really down to stay. And so, like I said, when I was in Jersey, nobody expected me to do nothing. Nobody expected me to go nowhere, to do anything. I was under no obligations, no assignments. And it was a season where I'm looking back on it now, where I was just healing. I was healing from what I thought was a life that was supposed to be sacrificial to others by living out their expectations for me, if that makes sense. And so I lived in Jersey for 6 months and I just healed. And I was in this loving community. And when the 6 months were up, I knew that the Lord was ministering to me about moving somewhere else. And for me, I thought maybe this is, finally time for me to go ahead and transition to New York. And I guess I had kind of made peace with it because I was like, okay, well, maybe this was like, training ground for me to get my feet wet, for me to like, understand the culture around here better so that I could just really walk into this new space boldly. And I love that community so much, to be honest. I didn't even want to leave. I contemplated a few options, but ultimately, and I mentioned it in episodes prior, I can't remember which one though, but when God showed me us, basically he showed me, and this is why paying attention to your visions are important. And this is why it's so important to pay attention to your visions when God shows you something out the way, not necessarily outlandish, but just something that's like out of the way, something that you could not have conjured up even if you wanted to. Because like I said, with me trying to figure out what my next move was, God showed me a vision of a building that had like, a name on it that I had never seen before. And for me, I thought the building was in New York. So I said, let me just keep looking up this name in New York and maybe it'll pop up. Maybe there aren't too many like, options and it'll be like, light work. But I never found it. And so I said, okay, maybe it was just all in my head. So I let it go. Maybe like another week later, maybe another week or two later, I was worshiping the Lord, feeling a way about my whole living situation, because by this time, I think we only had 2 more weeks left before we had to leave. And I still had not had any headway with where to go. And as I was soaking in worship, I heard, it's so beautiful. My goodness, like this is really a journey, and I really hope that y'all are following me because it's such a powerful revelation. And so hopefully Holy Spirit can help me articulate it in a very, very palatable way for everyone that's listening to understand, and most of all, so that it can be digestible for your own lives. Because like I said, in the first instance, I saw a vision of a building, right? And then like a week later, as I was soaking in worship, I heard a name. And when I heard the name, it wasn't necessarily an audible voice. It was like an echoing on the inside of me, an echoing of a specific word or name that just kept echoing until I paid attention to it. And so when I fixed my mind to it, when I fixed my attention to it, and I said, what is that? Where is that? And come to find out, I looked it up, on my little maps, and turns out it was an actual place. It was an actual place that was, pretty far. It was still on the East Coast, but it was pretty far away from New York and Jersey. And so, I had questions for sure. I was like, you know what? How about this? Because I know the Lord showed me a vision of this building with this name on it, right? So let me just see if this building is in this place where the Lord just told me. And by golly, knowing that Jesus is Lord, it was right smack dab there in the place that God showed me and told me about. And I was heavily confused. I said, God, I was like, Lord, here? What are we going to do all the way over here, God? And even though I did not know what the entire reason was for me living all the way over there, I mean, it's no secret, I think. Well, it's no secret now, but it's basically over by Philly. It was over by Philly, Philadelphia. And I said, what we gonna do in Philly, God? And to this day, still don't have an answer for you. Still don't have an answer for me. But I obeyed God, And given like it was 2 more weeks, like I said, left on our lease. And so I just started making steps towards that. And I said, Lord, well, this is what's required for me to get into this building. If you want me to live here, then I need you to, flatten a few mountains, because there are this, how much I make and how much I don't. It's the favor of God, right? That literally causes mountains to flatten, that causes mountains to move, and it's faith that causes them to get picked up and tossed into the sea. Things that you did not think were movable. God reminds me that he'll do whatever he got to do to make sure I got what I need, right? And so when he moved those mountains and I moved into that space, it felt like a dream. I was like, I cannot believe I live here. This is so beautiful and it's so quiet. And I moved. And this speaks of how intentional God really is, because he knows me. I absolutely adore the wonders of God. Like the weather changing, the snow falling, the leaves changing color, open environments, the outdoors. God knows that, like, I love watching the wonders of God. And so when I moved, I literally moved just in time to watch the leaves turn. I moved just in time to watch the seasons change. And where I lived, there were a lot of trees. There were so many trees. And it was a dream for me. And it does not mean that grief wasn't still present in what felt like a dream. The two things can be fundamentally true at the same time. I was so happy to be in this new space because I truly believe I heard the Lord say, Isaiah 54, expand your tent. You know what I'm saying? Expand your tent, stretch out because, you need some space. And I said, well, okay, God, whatever you want to do, I'm here for you. And I was also grieving the season I left behind, because if I can be honest, I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave a community that genuinely loved me for being a human being, and didn't want anything from me. And so now here I am in this season of isolation, this season where I am living by myself for the first time in a really, really long time. And all I was left with was me, myself, and I, my thoughts, what I thought about me, how I felt about my life, what I wanted out of life, like my aspirations, my ambitions, my passions, my dreams, my goals. All of those things came up to the surface in that place. After processing through the grief of knowing that, okay, it may be a while before I'm able to be around my friends in Jersey, I had to sit with myself to see what it is that what I thought about me and what I wanted out of my life. And I was casting all kinds of visions, goals. Like I said that I was going to open up a studio because I own my own production company. And I said I wanted to cross over into producing. I've been doing post-production for, oh my goodness, since I was 13, but professionally for like the last I would say maybe the last 4 years. I've been doing post-production, and I said I really want to go into producing in 2025. I really want to cross over into that. Like, I know I have a grace for it, and I know you've called me to do it. And so I was like, girl, we can build a whole studio. We can hire, like, this. I see it as plain as day. And maybe we can do this, and then we can do that. And if given the financial backing, given the resources, then I will allocate this for this, and then I will put this here, all the things. And I know I joke often about the spreadsheets, because I do. I ain't gonna show y'all the spreadsheet, but I have spreadsheets of all of the, like, literally line item after line item of exactly what I would do if given the resources to fund my visions, dreams, and goals, right? different people I wanted to partner with, different collaborations, like just different aspects of my life based on the ambitions in my heart and just my desires ultimately, right? And where I thought God was going to do something like, miraculous. Because to be honest, when I moved into that apartment, I could not afford it. Going into that, I knew I could not afford it. But I also knew that we had been here before, remember? It's like, God, we've been here before. And even though I know I can't afford it, I know that you have done some very miraculous work in my life that allowed me to go, you know what I'm saying, to go months rent free, to go a whole year not having to worry about bills. And so I was holding tightly to the testimony of past. And I was like, well, Lord, I know if you bless me with, if you allow me to steward over financial resources like that, then I know that you could bless me with more if I dream bigger, if I all those things. And so here I am in this beautiful, wonderful, empty apartment waiting for the Lord's provision to find me. And it's not as if it didn't, but it just found me in a different way than what I was expecting. Like I received random messages from friends that said like, I'll pay your rent. You know what I'm saying? It will be moments like that where I'll be just believing God, fasting and praying, and really saying like, God, you know what I need. And it'll be those random moments, or even just me having to, stick my pride, stick my neck out and put my pride aside to ask for help in certain areas, and not knowing how it'll go over, and realizing that no, it was the grace of God. It's the grace of God that my bills got paid every single month. And so every month I was working, but I had a lot of time to think. I also had a lot of time to think about me and what I wanted out of my life, and where I thought I wanted one thing. I think recently I've been challenged. I've been challenged to reassess it, because yeah, I've been challenged to reassess it. But I wanna reach a little pause here, right? Because even though I wasn't expecting this episode to go, I had no expectations, to be honest. But I guess this is a build up to maybe what God wants to share in the next episode. And so if this was a blessing to you in any way, shape, or form, or if you believe that it will be a blessing to someone that is close to you, please make sure that you share, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, so that it can be more discoverable on the platform. And I guess I'll see y'all in part 2, and we're gonna see what else Holy Spirit has to say.